are here with John Kosmoski, who is truly a legend, and I know that term is thrown around loosely, but John Kosmoski is legendary. He is the founder and creator of House of Color Paint. John, thank you for doing this interview with us.
Oh, it's good to see you.
Tell me how you got started in paint.
It was back in the nitrocellulose days. I mean, I was just hobbying around. You couldn't make a mistake with that product. I mean, you could pile it on. You didn't have to wait between dry times. It was almost impossible to run it. And then they said they were going to discontinue it. So what do you do then? You know, you bring out the new acrylics. And I looked at those new acrylics, and I never saw so many muddy toners in my life. And I thought, this is our future. I got to find out what makes paint. And so that got me started into looking at how is paint built? I mean, what's the mystery of all this, you know? And so that's how it began.
And it was really for your own need because you were a painter?
I never intended to sell a quart of it to anybody. I just wanted the good stuff for me. You know, I was kind of greedy about that.
Well, listen, the necessity is the mother of invention, right?
When you start winning all the awards and the other painters start coming to you, you think, well, you know something? Maybe I better do a label and start doing some more of this. So that's how it began.
So did House of Color start in 1956?
Well, that's when I started my painting career. So I kind of count that as the beginning. I didn't start making my own paint until 62, 63, and I didn't start selling it to others till 65.
When did it really start to gain traction?
75. And then in 1982, when I introduced the Cosmic system, it exploded. I mean, here I am, a little paint company, the first guy with encapsulated base coats. You know, we never had those before. Freeze the base. You used to have to wait overnight for the base to dry before you could start the candy. Now we waited 10, 15 minutes and we could begin and the bases wouldn't move.
So what kind of research did you do to learn the chemistry of paint?
Well, I barely made it through high school because I'm not really one that, you know, the problem with, get me to the meat and potatoes. I don't want to have all its drivel and I don't need it hammered into me because I was a quick learn, always a quick learn. So by reading books and then meeting a few of the right people, timing is everything, you know, they say that. Well, I met a guy at a paint show in Washington, D.C. that brought the base coat system to the U.S. And he schooled me in what it took to do it. You know, you have to take flammable liquids and heat it to 175 degrees. Well, how do you do that in a little body shop operation that I had? Well, you do it outside unless you're crazy, you know, because it's highly flammable. And so it was fun. It was really exciting. I made mistakes. I threw a lot of resin away because I did things wrong. But boy, when those mistakes hit you in the pocketbook, you learn really quick.
That's right. That's right. So what were your paints made of in the early days?
Well, I started with, I wanted acrylics because the problem with the old nitrocellulose lacquers, particularly in my climate, with a cold climate, they would crack in about 6 or 8 months. You'd never see a job with 10 mils of paint live more than a year. So they said the acrylics won't crack. Well, that got me started. I thought, we've got to be able to put the good pigments in the acrylic. Well, when you say acrylic, you're talking about plastics. And nobody had the technology to put the organic pigments into a plastic base. My wife took an art course, and she's taken an art course, and the guy next to her happens to be a doctor of polymer technology that was on that same course. And so what did I have to do to have him help me? Restore his 1929 Roadster. So he got a free restoration, and I got some knowledge that wouldn't have been gained any other way.
Sounds like you got the better end of the deal there.
Exactly.
So how long before you knew that you had a hit?
Well, I guess it really started in 75. I mean, I knew I had something special, but how do you tell the world when you're a little guy and you're trying to, you don't have the money to advertise, you don't have the money to get out there? Word of mouth. By treating each customer with special care and schooling them in the use of the products. I started selling it, and people said, well, it's blowing up. We can't make it work. So I realized I had to teach. So I did some videos, and, the same kind of thing you do in your magazine is teaching people the techniques, and that's what grows the business, grows the industry.
Is it true that you never stop painting, that you continue to paint today?
Look at these hands. I'm a painter. I mean, I love to paint. And that's something that never gets old. I do about 40 seminars a year around the country, in fact, around the world. I've been to Japan twice. I've been to Greece 4 times. I've been to Australia 4 times. In fact, I was in Australia 2 years ago and candied 3 cars. I did one in Sydney, I did one in Melbourne, and I did one in Auckland, New Zealand, to show the painters They paid $500 to spend 3 days with me, so we took a candy job from beginning to end.
What are some of the common problems that newcomers and even professionals experience with the House of Color paint that you can set the record straight about here?
Well, number one is intermixing various companies' products. My line is designed for 15 mil coatings. I mean, that's 4 or 5 factory paint jobs, and the other companies that tell you they're building custom paint are not. In fact, there's a company I can think of that's a big one that says if you exceed 7 mils, they won't warranty it. I mean, a custom paint job generally with candy on it comes in at about 10 or 12 mils, and we'll stand behind it if our product is used from primer to clear. The biggest problem, and when I had a guy call me up the other day, and this is a true story, he said his job was splitting open, and I said, tell me what you did. He says, well, I used a Sherwin-Williams primer, I sealed it with PPG, I put down your base and your candy, and I cleared it with RM. And he's calling me. I says, why are you calling me? I'm sandwiched in the middle of all this, you know? I says, I can't. You asking me to warranty something? How can I possibly do that? And I tell him, I don't care whose product you're using, stay with their system. Otherwise, you're throwing your warranty right out the window. You got no support.
Now, tell us, by the way, that was great. Tell us about Simran 2.
Well, here it is. I mean, I'm seeing water looming on the horizon, and I'm thinking water only evaporates at one speed. And how many airbrushers do you see with an airbrush in one hand and a hairdryer in the other to drive the waterborne? You have to drive it out with heat, and I'm thinking we're dead in the water. Custom paint's going to die if this is the way it's going to be. So we spent a lot of time searching the world for products that we could use that would compete with water. In Southern California right now, in the fiercest market, this most stringent market, it's 3.5 pounds of volatile organic compound that are allowed per gallon, and that's waterborne. Our new system is 2.8 solvent all the way. We're kicking water by 7 points, and this stuff is beautiful to work with. When you get a chance to spray it, it sprays almost identical to the Simran 1. Simran 2 is a winner, and we had to come out with a candy carrier. We can't provide ready-to-spray candies because they're considered a mid-coat by the environmental people, and so we have to allow the guys to mix their own candies, and we've come out with a 29% solid mid-coat, which makes candy painting easier than it's ever been.
So does that mean the transition has been relatively easy for people going from the original to Simran 2?
Well, let me say this. The mixing ratios have changed, and so it's a new learning process. And yeah, when you have to make a change, every painter hates change, and there are some changes. We've got a new catalyst now, KU 152, the new resins. I mean, everything has changed, and so yeah, there's some new things, but the old base coats are still, once they're mixed, it's still a 2-to-1 reduction. But the new clear is 3-to-1 to 1. And the new intermediate KK, the UKK candy carrier, is 4-to-1 to 1. So I mean, new mixing ratios, new stuff to learn, but the young painters, they're going to have no problem with it, but they are going to have to commit to the learning curve, or they're going to make some mistakes.
Where is the best place or places that they can learn how to use this new paint?
It doesn't get better than a hands-on seminar that I do 40 of those a year. We've got another young gentleman that works with us, Mike Taylor, that works the California, Arizona market. If you hear about a hands-on seminar on Simran 2, get there and pick up the brochures and study them and pay attention. Read the instructions on this new stuff. Don't assume anything.
Well, in the meantime, where can they find the schedule for these workshops?
Basically online or through your local jobber, because we like the jobbers to get behind us. We want to support the jobbers that are supporting us, and so they put on a lot of these seminars. So get to your paint jobber and say, hey, do you know anything about this? Make sure it's a jobber that supports House of Color, and they're the ones that we support and work with.
Yeah, well, how large is your jobber network around the country? It's pretty large, isn't it?
It is very large, and most any jobber can buy us through a warehouse chain, and consequently we're available through any warehouse that wants to get involved.
Well, I understand that there's
any jobber. I'm sorry.
Of course, and I understand that there is a dealer locator on, the House of Color website.
Yeah, we kind of stopped that Premier Jobber program because it offended those that weren't, you know what I mean, how it hurts. Some guys do well and other guys feel offended. So we're trying to do a program that makes everybody feel like they're part of the family. Yeah. And all they got to do is get involved a little bit.
How do you see the future of Simran 2? Is it bright?
Well, until we get a color card, it's been really hard because you try to tell, I mean, we've got the digital recreations that you can see online, and we've got it in our tech manual, but nothing beats a paint chip. The painters all want to see a paint chip, and we're finally going to have them. They're due in the end of January or sometime in February. They're being painted and put together in Italy right now, and so it's been a long chain. We had to find somebody that would work within our price range. This new color card is very extensive. Instead of having 300 colors, we've got 2,000 plus.
Wow, that's an ambitious effort.
Well, the first bids we got on the color card were over $1 million to do it.
Wow.
So we had to do some shopping.
Oh my! And you ended up in Italy.
And we're in Italy.
Anyway, John, thank you very much.
Oh, always good to see you, Cliff.
And I want to say that it's just an honor for me to say that John is my friend. I mean, I'm really proud that John considers me his friend. You do consider me.
It's it's good to be associated with you and the things you do for our industry.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
John Kosmoski.